What's going on, guys? Arvin6 here, and I'm a lead mentor inside the Platinum VIP mentorship group. And in today's episode of Facebook and Instagram advertising, we're going to be talking about the 3-day rule. This is the third part of the whole Beyond Six Figures Facebook Instagram advertising series. So definitely stay tuned for further knowledge on scaling. We're trying to go ahead and build our foundation here, and then as we continue on with the different parts of the multi-part series, we're going to get into more advanced tactics on how to go ahead and run your ads with Facebook and Instagram the BSF way and the successful way. So in our last post, we reviewed the primary and secondary metrics. To recap, the primary metrics were view content, add to cart, initiate checkout, and purchase. Essentially the metrics of customers' behaviors that you see, and you're going to see them directly in your ads manager. And then the secondary metrics are the CPMs, the CTRs, and the CPC. To recap, CPMs is basically the cost per 1,000 impressions, the cost that Facebook charges you to run ads. And the CTR is click-through rate, essentially out of a select group of people that your ads reached to, how many people actually clicked on your ad. And then the CPC is the cost per click, essentially how much each click is costing you, and so on. And then the ideal range for these metrics are the $20 to $30 range. Keep in mind during Q4 you're going to notice slightly increase, and these are secondary metrics. So the primary metrics are number of sales and profitability, so you got to focus on that primarily, but this is good to understand how your ads are working and they're engaging with the audience. And then CTR 1.4% or more, and the CPC is 60 cents or less. Now we're going to discuss in this call more about the 3-day rule here, right? So the 3-day rule is as precisely as outlined down below, right? At the end of the day one, at 24 hours, if you have no view content, you're going to go ahead and pause those specific ad sets, right? As you know, per the BSF system, we're running 11 audiences in a campaign, right? So we have a campaign, we have 11 audiences in their own ad sets at $5 a day, and then we have 11 ads, all the same ads under each specific ad set, right? So at the end of first day, after 24 hours, if you're not seeing any view content, right, or basically landing page views, you're going to go ahead and pause that specific ad set. And at the end of day 2, which is 48 hours, if you're not seeing any add to carts, you're going to go ahead and pause that specific ad set. At the end of day 3, which is 72 hours, you're going to go ahead and pause any ad set that has not brought you a purchase. Now, the reason we're so strict is because in our experience, we've seen with about $5 spent right here, and then $10 spent right here, $5 spent, you should be getting a view content, right? $10 spent, you should be getting add to cart. And in a per experience in 3 days for most products, if you don't have any purchases here, you're going to go ahead and kill the campaign. And this allows us to test a lot of products and really kind of bring it down to the product itself. And we can then say, hey, the product is at fault in terms of this is just not a winner. And, you can go ahead and not spend so much money and also test a lot of products to see which ones actually have some sort of potential. Now, you may be wondering what happens when one of these ad sets bring you a sale. Well, we do the 5x duplication method. Essentially, you guys probably heard of it before. You simply select your specific ad set that did bring you a sale within those 3 days, and then you go ahead and duplicate that within the same campaign, and you're running the same budget, and you're also going to go ahead and schedule it to launch the next day at midnight. Again, we want to launch midnight at your ad account time zone, right? And essentially why we do the 5x duplication method is just because out of the 11 audiences that we've seen in your campaign, you're going to notice that some of them are, picking up, they're getting some traction, and therefore you want to really see if that actually is just a false kind of sale or a once in a lifetime sale or a lucky sale, or is it actually more individuals that are interested in your product for that specific audience? And then when you duplicate it 5 times, you're essentially, I like to use the analogy where you're essentially just casting more fishing lines around that little pocket, right? So imagine you're in a massive pool, and then you have 11 audiences, which is multiple sections of that pool, right? And each section you're launching an ad set, which is the 11 audiences, and you're having the fishing poles in those sections. Let's say section number 11, which is your ad set 11, seems to be doing really, really, really well. and then it's getting you sales. Therefore, then you want to go ahead and duplicate 5x, meaning you want to cast more lines towards that section. That's essentially what duplicating is. It's just casting more lines or duplicating the audiences to get multiple pockets to see if you actually have some sort of potential there, and see if we can continue to scale this, right? So now we're going to talk about the differences between horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. So what we just discussed here is known as horizontal scaling, which is essentially you're just duplicating the ad sets and you're increasing the number of ad sets and audiences, but you're not scaling up the budget of the ad sets, right? While vertical scaling is, you probably guessed it, means that you're increasing the budget of a specific ad set. You're vertically scaling it, and the duplication is when you're horizontally scaling it, and essentially creating more number of ad sets versus increasing the budget of one ad set. And traditionally, we like to do this is because we want to make sure that we're gathering the data as soon as possible, but also having it like a manageable and maintainable budget of $5 per day. That's what we recommend, USD. So when you're duplicating multiple times, you're giving it multiple opportunities to go ahead and find some sort of sales here and there. And as you continue to move forward, you're going to notice that as your product gets more data faster, you're going to get more smoother metrics, more consistent metrics, and therefore then for something that's much more consistent, you can go ahead and actually vertically increase the budget, right? And then how do you monitor these duplicates is also probably a great question, because you're duplicating a lot of times and you're going to get a lot of duplicates within your campaign. Well, honestly, you're just following the 3-day rule, as simple as that, right? After 3 days, if it doesn't have a sale, kill it. After 1 day, if it doesn't have a view content, kill it. After 2 days, if it doesn't have an add to cart, kill it, as usual, right? And again, they're all running at the same budgets as mentioned earlier as well. Now, what happens if your duplicate produces a sale? So for example, you have a campaign, you have 11 audiences, one of that audience got a sale, right? You duplicate that 5 times. What if one of those duplicates actually have a sale? You're going to duplicate that another 5 times. Right? That's essentially what you want to do. But keep in mind, you're not duplicating the mother ad set again, ever. Even though they're the same audiences, this versus the 5, you're not duplicating the mother again. You're essentially, what you're doing is you're duplicating the duplicate again. So essentially, yes, it's the same audience, but the same entity is not being duplicated again, ever. Even if it produces more sales, right? That's kind of the whole theory here. And then you duplicate the next one depending on how consistent and profitable you are. So let's say, for example, you are very consistent and very profitable. Consistent means, it's defined by actually how many sales you're getting, and profitability is defined by the money you're making after all your products, costs of goods sold, etc. Right? That's kind of essentially what we're doing here. If you're finding great profitability and consistently, you want to duplicate 5 times for the extra duplicate. And then if you're not consistent and profitable, perhaps you want to go down and duplicate it only 3 times. You're not as confident with this product. You might still want to duplicate it. You can use as a less aggressive method and approach. And when do we stop duplicating? Probably one of the most common questions that I do get. Essentially, when we stop seeing an increase in revenue, we can go ahead and stop duplicating it. Essentially, we slow cook our ad sets to give them more time. So if you're starting to notice that you're increasing a lot of the budget and you're noticing that the sales are not genuinely increasing with it, that's a good sign that it means that you're not getting some sort of consistency, and therefore you can halt duplication to stop the increase in budgets, and then wait out 3 days to run the 3-day rule for all the duplicates that are running, so that you can go ahead and trim all the fat there. And therefore, when you're done trimming the fat, you're now getting a little bit more of a consistent and steady kind of revenue stream, rather than going ahead and just continue duplicating anytime you get. Slow cook essentially means you are allowing your ad sets to run. You're allowing your ad sets to run without adjusting any budgets, right? You're just applying nothing. You're just not applying any scaling tactics to it. You're just not spending any budget, and you're not applying any tactics. You're just letting it run specifically. And then for your duplication, I like also using something called the gas pedal analogy. Essentially, when you're pressing the gas, which you're spending more money, you're accelerating, and then you're making more money, right? And therefore, you can then continue the duplication. But if you're not kind of If you're pressing the gas, but you're not accelerating, meaning you're spending a lot of money, but you're not getting that kind of linear revenue, you then want to halt duplication and again follow the 3-day rule and then trim the fat, like I mentioned as well before. But yeah, to recap, this is the 3-day rule here. Horizontal scaling is more about duplication, while vertical scaling is more about increasing the budget. And we're going to get onto more of these kind of topics as we continue. Slow cook essentially means that we're not applying any scaling tactics or raising any budgets, and essentially we do that because we want them to spend a little bit more and show more consistency and profitability, overall, we want to make sure that we're following these metrics very, very carefully. Coming back to the CPM, CTRs, and CPCs as secondary metrics, view content, add to cart, and initiate checkout and purchase as a primary metrics, and then follow the 3-day rule as advised. Continue to duplicate, gather data, and make sure your product is doing well as well. And make sure you're monitoring your ads as well, guys. That's all for today.